Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. Thank you for joining us today. Our guest in studio is Mr. Justin Peck. He's a championship off-road racer. He's also an author. The brand new memoir, Bulletproof, is available now. And in addition, he's a public speaker as he celebrates his life with bipolar disease. Welcome back to Health Professional Radio, Justin Peck.
Thanks, Neal. How are you today?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Thanks so much for returning and talking with us.
Yes.
Now, your book Bulletproof is doing pretty good. Where's it available?
So it's available on the website at justinpeck.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can also get it on Amazon as well. We just hit the Amazon bestseller list. So yeah, it's we're pretty excited of how it's turning out.
Now, many of our listeners, well, most of our listeners are healthcare professionals, but talk a bit about bipolar disease. You suffer from bipolar disease as a mental health issue, in addition to a recovering addict and some more struggles that you outline and talk about in detail in your book, Bulletproof.
Yeah, living with bipolar is just, for me, it's a day-to-day thing. I don't think for me, I don't know any other way of living, by no means. I mean, there's been addiction involved. There's been, crazy mania stages. There's been depressive states, but for me, I don't know life any different. And so, I mean, that's just kind of where I'm at right now. I mean, I still wake up every morning just like the next guy. My pants go on, one leg at a time like everybody else. Yeah. And my shoes tie the same way as everybody else's as well. So, it's, to me, I don't think of it as a disease or a disorder. I like to call it a mental blessing, because at the end of the day, I would not be the man I am today without having the struggles that I've had.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're an author, a speaker. You race off-road champion racer with the Lucas Oil Series. Also, the owner of a race team, Race Pro Tech. Now, that's what you're doing now. But your book talks about you feeling different growing up when you were young. What do you remember most about those early days, some of the early signs, and when you were diagnosed with bipolar?
So, at a real young age, I do remember just having different thoughts. We could, my friends would be, thinking about frogs and baseball, right? And I would be thinking, more along lines of like life and feeling sad and, almost, wanting to die. And we're talking at the ages of like 7 and 8 years old. So when you have those type of feelings and emotions, and you try to convey those to your friends, okay, your friends are going to think that you're weird. And so, I did it for a little while. I talk about it with some buddies, and I realized really, really fast that it was best that I just kind of kept it to myself, because I knew that it was just, they weren't thinking the same way that I was thinking. And so I kind of pushed away from everybody. I became kind of an outcast. And then when you're an outcast in school, you end up becoming picked on quite a bit. And so I went through the bullying stages from, roughly 3rd and 4th grade up until, I graduated high school. And still had no idea kind of what was going on. But, it didn't take until I think I was probably 32, 33 years old before I actually went in and had the test done. Yeah. So, I've had the mental blessing, the mental disorder for, 30, I don't know, man, probably 35, 36 years. So.
In other segments, when we were talking here before, you talked about how your colleagues in the racing community have received you and your book so far. Also, we've been here talking about some of the ways that, your friends and schoolmates treated you at a very early age and on into your teens. Talk a little bit about how your family members reacted to you. What were some of the ways that your bipolar affected your family? We've talked about how affecting your friends as you tried to talk about it. What about family?
Well, the family end of it was that was always quite interesting because I learned that you don't talk to your friends and you hide it with your friends. You must have to hide it with your family as well. So kind of the irony behind this whole thing is, the book was released in January of this year, and my mother read it for the first time, and she looked at me with tears in her eyes saying, I had no idea. And, I lived with my mother until I was, 17 years old. And so, my family, they didn't know what ended up happening is I became a master at hiding the disorder. I could, if I was in a depressive state, I could act like I was sick. I could force myself to throw up. I could do whatever to make it where I didn't have to go to school. When I was in the mania stage, it's a little harder to hide when you're in mania, but I also understood that when I was in that stage, I could go away. I could go be by myself, and I could be creative and do the things by myself. So with family, I hit it really well. When did your drug use begin? Drug use began probably mid 2000. I had a really bad crash on a dirt bike at a big national race and hurt myself pretty bad. So had to go get surgery. After the surgery, kind of started with the pain meds, of course, to kind of keep the pain down from the surgery. But as time went on, I didn't stop the pain meds and always started having the excuse of, my arm hurt or now I've got a headache or whatever. And, that lasted for about a year and a half.
And we hear so much about celebrities, hurting themselves and becoming addicted to pain meds. It's an epidemic in the United States right now. And I'm sure other parts of the world where opioids are available. Now, of course, yours started as the result of an accident, a horrific accident. I think you describe it in your book as blowing up your arm and having them put it back together. Things were kind of discombobulated for quite a while. And as you say, these excuses, you started using these excuses to just use the drugs, not just for the pain. Was there anything else involved? I mean, are you just battling with these pain meds, or did you, you're a race car driver. Did you drink as well? Or was that a problem for you?
No, I've actually been quite fortunate enough to not be a drinker. I don't drink to this day. I've never really done any of the other drugs. I would just for me it was more of the opiates, and it was because the opiates they turned my brain off.
Now, why did you decide that now was the time to actually write a book about your life? Bulletproof is a very intriguing title. And when you read the book, you find out why you had such a nickname. But why did you feel that now was the time to do this?
Well, I just, for me, I read in the news and I listen to the stigma that's portrayed all the way through the country about mental health and mental disorder. And I finally got to the point where I just, for me, I'm sick of it. I think that there's no tolerance for people who struggle like I do. And so my main focus now was to bring a voice to the illness and end the stigma that a mental health disorder is something that you need to be locked up for or that you need to be chastised about. So, that's where I'm at now. That's why I speak, and that's why I stand in front of thousands of people and tell my story, even though it may be embarrassing, it may be, raw, it may be whatever. But for me, I want to end the stigma because it's not necessary.
And where can we get, I know you talked about at the opening of this interview, this conversation, but where can our listeners once again get a copy of your brand new memoir entitled Bulletproof?
You can get it at the website, justinpeck.com. We have, several varieties that you can get. We also have our blog posts and stuff that you can get some information, and my email's there as well. I urge the listeners to even reach out if they have questions and stuff. And for me, I answer. I like to hear the struggles of other people and, help the best way that I can.
Great. Well, it's been a pleasure as always talking with you today, Justin.
Thanks, Neal. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard, in studio with Justin Peck, and we've been talking about his book, Bulletproof. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, listen in, and download at SoundCloud.